1.5 million dirhams, you can buy a one-bedroom in Burj Khalifa, which is 816 square foot. So that's a one-bed in Burj, which has got the Armani hotel attached to it, tallest tower in the world. I did that same search where I live for which is £300,000. You couldn't even get a 200 square foot studio with a 20-year lease, non-renewable. Nothing comes online. I challenge anyone to try and find something in central London at £300,000.
The real estate market has already been battling sluggish market conditions long before COVID-19 even arrived. But the pandemic, in combination with the postponement of Expo 2020, have added further instability characterized by project delays, decline in demand, and both values and rental yields reflecting unfavourable climate. However, affordable property prices in Dubai are fueling significant growth in sales activity as residential values drop towards those last seen after the global economic crisis almost a decade ago. Now, should that be considered as a ray of hope for the real estate market, or are property sellers just very desperate to bring the prices down to as low as 911 dirhams per square feet compared to 1,400 back in 2014? Well, you are watching Arabian Business's Back in Business webinar series brought to you by Avaya Spaces. And to find out more about this real estate market and what's going to happen later in 2020-2021, we have Allsopp from Allsopp and Allsopp, Atif Rahman from Danube Properties, and Taimur Khan from Knight Frank. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Awesome. Atif, I'm just going to start with you, right? You're one of those, or Danube Properties is one of those companies that hasn't been a COVID casualty, if I may say. You know, we've been receiving a lot of reports from you about increased headcount, new deliveries, new properties, there's resorts, there's olives, so many new things happening in Danube. And I think one thing that you've always spoken about is a sustainable real estate model. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, sure. I think, in one of my earlier interviews, and I was asked, what are the challenges you're facing during the COVID time? I said, typically as a business, I find it more convenient to operate the business when there is a crisis versus when there is a boom, because you have a cost inflation to take care of, you have attrition to take care of, you have greater competition to take care of. But when there is a crisis, you're kind of more attractively placed. Like, for example, I'm finding this as one of the most exciting time to roll out the tenders and close the construction sites as early as we can. So, I mean, it's a very interesting time.
I think we've been going a little back and forth, or you with Arabian Business, in terms of the role of brokers and the changing role of brokers and consultants. You know, with the emergence of apps like Urban and Dubizzle with that little box which says that, you know, if you want to go directly to the landlord and not through an agent. I'm curious to know about how your role in all of this has changed this year.
Obviously, I read your Arabian Business social media, and sometimes I can't help comment back when I put something on there, Allsopp and Allsopp, and someone laughs and they go, "Oh, the real estate market is not in a good place. Why would you buy now?" And there's only so much you can put in the press. But from my point of view, we're up on revenue from 2019, 2020, 12%. Last year, we moved 2,322 people into homes. We're already over that this year. And that's with really a 3-month gap of the business stopping. So I think from my point of view, if you ask me the question of how is the business of an estate agent evolving? Look, what we do is at rocket science. We find good properties and we move good buyers into them. The whole market for me on Dubai as a whole, and I've said this for the last 4 or 5 years, has gone from what I used to do. I used to underwrite towers. I used to go and put deposits on towers and flip them. I bought a Palm Jebel Ali villa and sold it in 24 hours. I've been involved in hydro and I've done everything that you can imagine. But that market is no longer there. The market, the whole market is based on is the end user market. People that have been in Dubai 4 or 5 years and they want to buy a house. Now, buying, generally people that rent, they have to rent, obviously. So we're saying to these buyers, okay, put in 100,000 dirhams and you can have a property to rent, or put 200,000 in today and you can own the property. Now, most people can find that extra 100,000 dirhams. So that, you know, you can buy a townhouse today for 1 million dirhams. So getting on the property ladder with the new loan to value increase of 80% is actually not that difficult. 200,000 dirhams down payment, or pay and own it, or 100,000 to rent it. You can find that extra 100,000 if you really want to buy a house, whether that's a family member.
Traditionally, people have considered Saudi's real estate market to be nascent compared to that of Dubai. But this year, we've seen a sort of mindset change there, and people are relying more on the Saudi real estate market than they are, or they have confidence in the Dubai real estate market. So can you tell us more about that? And it would be great if you could support it with numbers and figures.
Sure. So look, starting off with Saudi Arabia, and particularly looking at some of its major cities, there is the market is still fairly nascent. There's a lot of development activity going on within that market, but a lot of it is being created for end user Saudi nationals. That's where the market is. Whereas Dubai's market is much more international, much more. There's a lot more holiday homes elements within here. For that, the Saudi Arabia market has quite a way to go. Within Saudi Arabia, the markets really differ from location to location. It's a much bigger country with a much more populous. It's a much more populous country as well. So the likes of Riyadh, where you still are seeing a lack of affordable homes and so on, prices have been relatively stable. But in Jeddah and the eastern provinces, you've seen that prices have sort of softened, particularly because of the economic circumstances within those two particular locations. Impacting that element of the market. I think, look, Saudi Arabia's market is very much a long-term play and is very much backed by the government. So I think we'll see an incredible amount of activity, and even on sort of the high end in locations such as Amala, the Red Sea development and so on, where they're targeting your ultra high net worth individuals.
Another problem, especially with the Saudi market, is VAT. So especially from a buyer's point of view. So it's increased from 5% to 15%. Has that again changed sentiments when it comes to investment and just buying property in Saudi?
Yeah, look, to a certain degree, the increase in VAT has made it tricky. I mean, the thing is, the Saudi government has agreed up to around 850,000 rial. They'll pick up the VAT tab effectively. So that does provide some resilience to the market. But I think that's going to be one of the most significant challenges facing the Saudi market. But on a broader regional level, I think financing going forward will be a challenge as well, particularly as some banks, reach exposure which they might not be comfortable with, or from a regulatory perspective, it puts them in a bit of a tricky place. I mean, as a result of the current situation, the UAE central bank has pushed out, as they changed the regulations last year, they've pushed out the rules behind this. But I think banks will be looking quite carefully at their real estate exposure going forward.
And now that we put in, so if you really want to get what's going on in the market and understand the pricing, you have to speak to an agency that can tell you what they've agreed to sell on that day. So my job is to really understand that, to map out the market. So some interesting stats for anyone that's watching. I'll give you a couple of examples. So a C1 in Victory Heights, which is a 5-bedroom golf course for them. We sold at 3.25 million in July. We've just sold the same villa, same similar location with a pool and a golf course for 3.675, which is a 10% increase. A B-type, which is a 6-bed, we sold at 4.1 million in April. We've just sold at 4.8, which is a crazy 20% increase. We're going to put that down to just being a cheap deal and a good deal. But then if you look at genuine properties that are traded a lot, a 4M in Springs, we sold at 1 million 74 months ago. We've just agreed one yesterday at 1.1875, which is 10% increase. And also the same for a 2M, 1.82. We've now agreed yesterday at 1.975. Across the board, there is a 10% increase. And that's not because prices have jumped 10%, the market's booming. It's very simple. They're the cheapest properties from 6 months ago. The most expensive properties 6 months ago are the cheapest today.
Let me bring you into the initial conversation we were having when we started about supply and demand. Basic economics, we've been talking about oversupply before 2015. There still is oversupply in the market, and then you see developers like Damas, etc., saying, right now, this is the time that we're going to stop, making new properties and building new properties. We see you just again handing over so many new projects, announcing so many new projects. I think you're also delivering 5 large projects, right? So what does it do to the whole real estate economics in this market, which is relatively small?
Sure. See, I think, this is a very, very interesting topic. And I think it is one of the oldest topics, because when you look back, there's not been a single year in Dubai during the last 15, 20 years that we've not spoken about oversupply. So this is probably one of the favorite topics that we've got. And yet we continue to build, and yet it continues to be occupied. The risk of oversupply looms in every city. I mean, let's take, for example, India. The population is 1.3 billion people. All you have is people in India, man. And when you look at the current situation in Mumbai, 170,000 homes ready, no takers. The supply increases, people start upgrading their lifestyle, they start moving to better property, better location, within that location a better property. So if you have invested in a good real estate, you don't need to be panicking because of the supply that is generating.
Talking about creating demand, right?
Yeah.
In the examples you gave, be it India or the UK, for example, there's one problem that we don't see that's happening in Dubai, which is a mass exodus of expatriates, which we saw this year. So how are you going to create more demand in an environment where we see more people leaving the country and not coming in?
Shruti, you're right. And I was expecting the same in the month of March. In the month of March, I was busy launching a project, and we did well. It was sold out, and we were celebrating just before the lockdown. I was expecting the same risk, but you know what has happened? I think hats off to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed and the way Dubai managed, and overall UAE managed the COVID challenge, the pandemic, how it was handled. There were a lot of, there was a big percentage of people who were planning to go back to their home countries. But then when they started comparing the situation in their native countries versus in Dubai or UAE at large, they felt more comfortable and safe staying back over here.
Look, the market's oversupplied. I don't think anyone can really argue on that. But is it a bad thing? I don't think so. Right. So in the next 3 years, you'll have something like 155,000 new units scheduled to be delivered. But that sort of trend is dying out now. If you look at 2017, there were around 48,000 launches. In 2018, 32,000. And if you fast forward to 2020, there's only been 4,000 launches. So eventually this level of supply will feed into the market.
Atif will create his own market with his own development, and that will become a micro transaction up and down. When we talk about the oversupply, no one's doubting the oversupply. I've never doubted it. But like in London, you have SW1. That is your core postcode. As you go out, it becomes more affordable. There is a reason that you can get a 5-bed townhouse in Akoya at the moment for 60,000 dirhams, because it's 20 kilometers away. You can go to the airport, the Expo Centre. The Expo Centre, you can probably get a lovely villa for 60, 70,000. Do you want to travel there, or do you want to pay double the price and be in the middle of the mixer? And that is the way. It's not Dubai, that's the world. So I don't believe there's an oversupply in areas. I believe there is stock being pumped in, which will sell, but it's in areas that are not already built.
So you did say that the supply is going down, and it is going to go down in the coming years as well. So if the supply comes down and the demand increases, just basic economics, I want to know, are the prices going to go back up again to, like a decade back?
I think it'll be a lot more gradual than what you were talking about a decade back, where we were seeing prices increase, 30% year on year. I think we will see much more modest price appreciation, assuming no additional supply comes in. And I think if you look at the beginning of the year with what Sheikh Mohammed has announced with the new role of RERA to effectively ensure that supply was a lot more closely looked at, new developments were a lot more closely looked at. If that becomes the case, and that we start to see a bit more of a natural inflation in total stock.
At this point, is there a lack of institutional grade products available in the UAE?
Look, is there a lack of institutional grade products? Look, I think it's a really good question. I don't think they're not. Okay, they're not. It's not that they're not there. they're not available to the market, right? I think a lot of, and let's, I think you're, talking outside of just residential real estate in this particular case, right? So if you look at, single ownership office buildings which are available to, there's very, very few of those. We worked on the last sort of major one, which was sold, which I think was the Uboro Tower, which the interest on that was incredible from both regionally and internationally as well. But we just haven't seen, any major transactions really of that sort of stature since then. But there is stock there. There's definitely stock there. And if you look at some of the recent deals that ADNOC did, for example, with a 5 billion, partnership that they did recently there. But it's all about, monetizing it.
Need of the hour is to talk about the financing. When you look at the payment plan that we launched and it was overnight hit, it was an overnight success with the consumer. If you look at the underlying reason, when I was sad, my inspiration while doing the maths was central bank cap, because I was looking at the central bank cap of 50% down payment from the consumer on an off-plan property before they would allow the banks to come and participate. And that was the basis of my calculation of the payment plan. And when I look at the maths for any vertical project, what I consume for construction is 50%. So if I am able to raise the capital for land investment and I am able to sell the product handsomely, collect the payments, and I have that 50% to build the asset, I'm perfectly placed. I don't carry any risk.
My customers on my website, from the API of the bank through to my website to start, but unfortunately at the moment, there's not enough open source data to be able to get the technology we need from Dubai. And that will change at some point, I think.
Inshallah, we're hoping that it changes soon.
Just to come on that, Shruti, remember one thing. The more we go digital, you will see a higher demand for residential properties because people are choosing to work from home. They're comfortable working from home and they need larger space at home, lesser of commercial office spaces requirement, and you would continue to see a rise in demand for a more comfortable residential space because I have a couple of my friends, very, very old friends, and they're CFOs of top businesses over here. They don't go to office anymore. They work from home. So you would see there will be benefit coming out of this as well, for residential property, I feel.
But honestly, is that one of the trends that we have seen this year with work from home and all of that? If people are not buying larger spaces with, comfortable office spaces within the houses, are they opting to rent such houses more? Lewis, Taimur, both of you all can jump in on this.
Look, I mean, just as a general point on sort of the whole concept of the office is dead, I think I am probably the only one not in the office today. Atif, you look like you're in your office, and Lewis, you look like you're in your office. But I think there's going to be a much more flexible solution going forward. So, for example, I go in maybe once or twice a week at the moment, but more if I have meetings and so on. And occasionally, it's really nice to just be able to work from home in silence, and you can get things done, and you can get things done at your own time. And as a result of that, I think Atif is right. There will be requirements, and greater level of requirements to have a dedicated space within people's homes. In Dubai, that has historically somewhat been true. We've seen the footprint of new developments shrink, and I think we might see that sort of increase back up again, because I think the one thing that everyone found was, particularly in the early days, that you end up working a lot more than you did at the office. You sort of just couldn't get away from your desk, really. And I think people will want to have that sort of division of, personal home life and then, work life at home as well.
There's two types of business. Being able to work remotely is one, but I think that offices are still going to be needed, but I think the prices are going to come down. I've seen this myself.
Do you think foreign investors at this point are sort of ready for that long-term commitment here in Dubai, given the situation, given the sort of reputation that the real estate market has had in the last few months? Lewis, probably you want to take this?
Yeah, of course. I think it's important for anyone that's watching to understand what Dubai is. I mean, Dubai 2006, 2005 was an investment haven. And now it's an adult's playground. You know, it has some of the best restaurants, some of the best bars, some of the best beach clubs, you know, whatever you're into, shopping. It pretty much is, you know, it's possibly one of the best places in the world to live, and it's one of the safest. So I think a lot of people, you know, are looking for that second home, and we're seeing that international clients registering it. You know, our international client registrations up dramatically over the last 3 months or so. And I'm no different. I live in Dubai, but I know my mindset. I've been looking for an overseas property at the moment, and I've been looking to buy, and I've been spying. And I know that people that have the mindset that want to buy their holiday home, this is not going to stop them. I think COVID as a whole, and it's not been talked about a lot, is very simple. It's slowed it down, and now it's accelerating your life choice, whether that's buy a house, buy a holiday home, whatever that choice is. Things have not took a U-turn, unless you've lost your business or your job, of course, but generally most people are still carrying on their process. So the whole foreign investment thing at the moment, I think the big thing is that once people can fully come back in the country, whether that is mass testing, you know, let's say how it is, these COVID tests are a little bit annoying when you've got to get on a flight. I think I've had 6 so far up my nose, and it's a little bit frustrating going up and down the flights. I think once that ends and they find a way to really get everyone back flying again, I think Dubai will accelerate even further. Because I said this before, you look at Dubai as an investment, let's take it as a holiday home. I have a property in London. My price per square foot in London is 7,000 dirhams per square foot. Okay, so I did a little bit of market research and I put this on my LinkedIn before. 1.5 million dirhams, you can buy a one-bedroom Burj Khalifa, which is 816 square foot. So that's a one-bedroom Burj, which has got the Armani Hotel attached to it, tallest tower in the world. I did that same search where I live for which is £300,000. You couldn't even get a 200 square foot studio with a 20-year lease, non-renewable. Nothing comes online. I challenge anyone to try and find something in central London at £300,000. That gives you an idea. If you're an international investor getting into their mindset, I would be like, oh my God, I can live in the Burj Khalifa for £300,000. You can't even buy a 2-bed in Marbella for that. You know, people underestimate how cheap Dubai is. So yes, I have no doubt about it that people that are looking for a second home or holiday home, they're coming.
But is that a good thing or a bad thing that the prices are this low in even Burj Khalifa?
It is what it is. I mean, look, let's just go back 6 years ago. 6 years ago, people are very quick to forget prices were booming. Let's not forget that. 6 years ago, the prices were going up, and the only reason they came down, the government, no one else, put the brakes on it by doubling the transfer fee and put a brake on the loan to value. So this has been a controlled dive to say, hang on a minute, we don't want a boom, because if we have a boom, people's income is not matching the prices. So when they go to get a mortgage, it's impossible to get one. So we're at the stage now where you can see they're slowly turning these taps, and they said, okay, you watch this. And it's happening around the world. It's the UK government with stamp duty, and it's here with the loan to value. I can tell you categorically, if these keep getting turned, if I asked you a question, Shruti, would you buy a property today if I said you could no down payment at all, and you're going to pay the same you're paying now, but it's going to be your home and you're paying your own mortgage? Would you do it?
I would. I totally would.
So would most people. And that's the mindset of everyone. If you get everyone in that mindset and make them and give them the ability to get on the ladder, Dubai will go into a state of positivity, which we're already seeing.